In the long, hushed corridors of the world's oldest institutions, silence is more than just a code of conduct, it is a crown. It is said that in places where secrets serve as the currency of power, even a single stray breath can trigger seismic shifts. Recently, insiders and royal history enthusiasts have once again been abuzz with a dramatic theory: does a final puzzle piece exist with the power to upend the entire current order? A theory of a forgotten letter carrying aftershocks from the past appears to be challenging positions once thought unshakable. It all began with whispers of a quiet winter morning at Kensington Palace. Amidst a drifting mist, it is believed that William, the figure bearing the heavy weight of succession, embarked on a journey back through time. He wasn't seeking power. He was searching for fragments of memory. Amidst layers upon layers of archival documents and time-worn memorabilia, a peculiar object emerged. According to circulating theories, it is an envelope bearing the hallmark of a bygone era, inscribed with delicate slanted handwriting, the signature of a soul that has become a symbol of empathy. If such a letter truly exists, what could it possibly contain? Analysts theorize that this is far more than just a personal note. It seems to function as a manifesto of core values, a reminder of who truly deserves a place among those committed to service. In this fictional scenario, the emergence of the letter creates a royal paradox. If those messages were to be made public, they would raise profound questions about contemporary positions of power. People begin to contemplate a potential shift in authority. When voices from the past reach the heart of the present, do those who hold power feel their thrones grow unsteady? It appears to be a manifesto of core values, a reminder of those truly worthy of standing in the ranks of selfless service. In this speculative scenario, the emergence of the letter has created a sovereign paradox. If these messages were to be made public, they would cast a massive shadow of doubt over contemporary positions. People are beginning to contemplate a pivotal power shift. When a voice from the past touches the heart of the present, do those currently holding authority feel their thrones begin to tremble? Particular attention is being focused on the standing of the women within the palace. Could a message from Diana possess the power to eclipse the radiance of those who followed, perhaps even triggering a transition that no royal script could have ever foreseen? We do not claim the letter's authenticity, for in a world of fortress-like stone walls, the truth is often shrouded beneath layers of mystery. In the absolute stillness of the night, when all of creation seems to stand still, it is said that hidden truths begin to find their voice. In a study consumed by shadows and the flickering of firelight, our central figure, the heir to the throne, stands face to face with a storm, sealed within an aging sheet of paper. The snow falling outside is more than just a natural phenomenon. It is like a white veil attempting to shroud the secrets of the past. But inside, the heat radiating from the letter is more intense than the flames in the hearth. According to supposedly hypothetical sources, the letter is more than just a mother's heartfelt sentiment. It bears the resemblance of a psychological map, a guide to identifying the dark zones within a complex system. Instead of explicitly naming conflicts, our scenario focuses on the opposition between the diplomatic mask and the iron will. The hypothesis posits that the Rose of England left behind a sharp identification of a figure she referred to as the carrier of shadows. Words like mask, the erosion of trust, and the game of thrones are used to describe a reality that William has spent decades trying to harmonize. Do not let smiles cloud your instincts. Where power is the destination, sincerity is sometimes merely a tailor-made costume. This could be the core message the letter intends to convey from a hypothetical analytical perspective. We are witnessing a fierce internal struggle. On one side is royal decorum, the mask William has worn to maintain the architected stability of the empire. On the other is the echo from the past, urging him to pierce through the velvet curtains. Observers suggest that this segment is not merely about a family. It reflects a timeless human law, the conflict between the legacy of love and the cold calculations of ambition. If this letter is real, it would not only change the life of one man, it could redefine the very notion of legitimacy in the public eye. William folded the letter, but its aftershocks were not so easily contained. He realized that the piece he had so carefully preserved for so long might be nothing more than a thin sheet of ice over a sea of hidden currents. What would happen when an heir chose to remove the mask of civility? Can words from the past carry enough weight to turn the tightly fixed wheels of power? Let us wait and see in the next cross-sections of history whether truth or stability will be given precedence. In the stillness after the snowstorm, when all things are draped in a cloak of pristine yet frigid white, a dialogue across space and time is unfolding. William realized that the black ink on the cream-colored paper was not merely a mother's legacy. It was a silent indictment of the present order itself. AI. The hypothesis is this: when confronted with such a legacy, the heir must weigh not only what is best for the crown, the symbol of stability, but also face the heart, the symbol of integrity. Love is not always a resounding spectacle. Sometimes it is the quiet perseverance to protect values that have no voice. This is the psychological knot that transforms a royal man into a guardian of truth. Imagine a world in which every handshake, every glance is part of a meticulously staged script. William, in this journey to seek the truth, came to recognize a harsh reality, profound loneliness amid millions of cheering voices. The image of the woman who embodied compassion, retreating deep into the garden with her hands tucked into her coat pockets, stands as a testament to the fracture between outward splendor and inner pain. It is a warning about the price of power, where a real human being can so easily be ground down by the wheels of ritual and calculation. The most unsettling focal point in these discussions is the assessment of the woman who holds the current position. Rather than treating this as a personal attack, we should examine it through a strategic, analytical lens. The letter appears to describe a particular kind of influence, a form of allure that is never without purpose. The hypothesis posed is this: can a will hard as stone, concealed beneath a veneer of courtesy, bend decisions of national consequence? This is not merely the story of an individual, but a lesson in how private relationships can become variables capable of altering the fate of a long-standing institution. As dawn broke, William realized he could no longer remain an actor in a pre-written play. Recording every line was no longer just about preserving information, it was about preparing for a far greater dialogue with history itself. If you held a truth capable of shaking even the most impregnable walls, would you choose the calm of the status quo or the storm of justice? We stand at a threshold where personal decisions begin to carry the breath of an era. Will the legacy of the English rose serve as a guiding light or become the spark for a restructuring of royal power? The letter no longer stops at warnings about authority. It evolves into a call for kinship and protection. Before we step into the king's study to witness this historic confrontation, I want to hear from you. Faced with such a heart-rending choice, how do you feel about Prince William is the act of removing the royal mask to defend the truth? A courageous redemption or a grave mistake that threatens the very survival of the monarchy? Leave comment 2 if you support his integrity and courage. Leave comment 5 if you believe prudence and the stability of the crown matter most. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe right now so you won't miss the most dramatic slices of truth as they continue to unfold next. In her final lines, the mother reminded us of a truth that is obvious, yet so often forgotten within fortress walls. A crown may rest upon the head of one individual, but its soul is sustained by those bound by blood and love. Woven into this was a deeply moving message about brotherhood, about protecting those who might otherwise be submerged by the harshness of the institution. This is a profoundly human slice, transforming the narrative from a struggle for power into a lesson about connection and solidarity. Truth is like sunlight. It will always find a crack through which to slip into even the darkest places. When William set the letter down, he was no longer a man bound by the old rules. The letter had become a personal manifesto, a mirror reflecting every doubt he had tried to bury. In a world of whispers and leaks, he understood one thing clearly: truth only has value when it is spoken in the voice of integrity itself. Carrying the letter close to his left chest was not merely bearing a keepsake, it was carrying a moral compass to face what lay ahead. The chosen setting was not the pageantry of Buckingham Palace, but the quiet stillness of Clarence House, where the sounds of history seemed to hold their breath. Imagine the moment a son steps into his father's study not as an aide but as a bearer of a message from the past. The door closes, severing the noise of the outside world, leaving two generations facing one another in dim, suspended light. TT. No raised voices were needed. The weight of the exchange lay in the silence, and the gravity etched on their faces. On one side stood the embodiment of continuity and tradition, Charles. On the other, the awakening of new values, William. As William prepared to speak, he found himself facing a choice that could reshape the entire future of the monarchy. Was truth powerful enough to break through the barriers of ritual, and was the father willing to listen to the voice of the departed, spoken through his own son? We are standing before one of the most dramatic moments of this hypothesis, a confrontation not meant to destroy, but to recover a balance long since lost. In the quiet study of Clarence House, an old envelope became the focal point of every gaze. As the familiar handwriting emerged, time itself seemed to stand still. The hypothesis suggests that between the reigning king and the heir unfolded a dialogue not only of words, but of shared and painful memories. One side represents the view that the past is a complex labyrinth, best left undisturbed in order to protect the stability of the crown. The other insists that the past never truly disappears. It is present, shaping every breath of the present. The tension lies not in the volume of their voices, but in the coldness of historical scars being reopened. This raises a profound question: can stability truly exist if it is built upon buried truths? At the very peak of the dialogue, a third figure appears, the one to whom the letter devoted its sharpest warnings. This unannounced presence is like an unexpected chess piece, instantly altering the entire balance of the political board. A fleeting glance at the envelope, the silence shared by three individuals in a confined space. All of it composes a portrait of an irreparable fracture. This is the moment when the mask of royal civility begins to show its first cracks. K. What was bound to happen has happened. A secret once named is no longer a secret. Along the current of this fictional narrative, information begins to leak not through a single explosive revelation, but through subtle ripples spreading across discrete online forums. The atmosphere within the palace shifts entirely, averted glances from aides' conversations abruptly cut short behind stone walls, an unsettling silence settling over the corridors. It feels as though the ancient walls themselves are trembling before a truth too immense to contain. This is the moment when we witness the terrifying power of information in the digital age. A letter from the past can ignite a present-day crisis in a matter of hours. In an era where information moves faster than ancient rituals ever could, secrets are no longer guarded by stone walls, but by the fragility of algorithms. Beginning as a whisper on a private forum, the aftershocks of the letter's existence swiftly transformed into a media tsunami. Observers have called this the paradox of silence. The tighter the palace clings to quiet, the more deafening the echo of speculation becomes. A headline heavy with symbolism appears, a message from the realm of memory. It is not merely an article. It is a direct challenge to the stability of the current monarchy. William is no longer facing exposure alone, but the distortion of truth itself. This is an even harsher battle when the sacred words of a mother are torn from their context. They become weapons in the hands of information speculators. Or the outrage did not stem from exposure itself, but from seeing the memory of his mother dragged into the vortex of distorted headlines. Behind the composed exterior and the emergency meetings lay a deep, gnawing unease. Observers hypothesize that even the most flawless public relations campaign cannot withstand the force of a single emotionally resonant sentence. Not every smile offered in solidarity carries a blessing. A simple line, yet powerful enough to overturn decades of carefully constructed image. The image of William walking through a forest of microphones and rapid-fire questions feels like a metaphor for his position alone within the current of history. Polite nods and carefully measured smiles become his final armor against the pressure of public scrutiny. Inside the palace, a strategic debate erupts, the advisors prioritizing stability, hoping the storm will simply burn itself out. His partner, Catherine, serving as a spiritual anchor, reminding him of the philosophy embedded in the letter itself: sunlight will always find a way in. The true turning point did not come from the press, but from a private late-night conversation. As William read those lines aloud to someone who truly understood a person deeply connected to Diana's past, the silence on the other end of the line carried a devastating weight. It was not the silence of having nothing to say, but the silence of awakening. It confirmed this: these words did not belong to a single family alone. They belonged to a greater truth the world was longing to hear. In the corridors of power, silence is often treated as a shield of protection. But for William, after countless sleepless nights confronting his mother's legacy, he came to a realization: truth is not an attack, it is a liberation. Rather than allowing rumors and leaked reports to tear apart Diana's memory, he chose a stage worthy of her values, a gala dedicated to mental health, the cause she devoted her life to championing. This was not an impulsive act. It was a strategy rooted in integrity. The hypothesis emerges: is breaking the palace's unwritten rules an act of betrayal, or is it the bravest way to redeem the very soul of the monarchy? The scene is described like a classical painting, crystal chandeliers scattering light opulent attire, and the refined atmosphere of high society. Yet amid all that splendor, an invisible weight rests in the pocket of the man standing at the podium. Catherine, in an emerald green gown, appears as a symbol of quiet companionship. She is not merely a wife, she is the keeper of the flame, the only one who understands that beneath William's composed exterior, a storm is waiting to be named. As William stepped up to the podium, the world seemed to hold its breath. The opening courtesies were merely an overture meant to soften the vigilance of the advisors. But when his hand slipped into his jacket pocket and emerged holding the worn envelope, the very nature of the evening changed completely. Silence spread from the front rows to the far end of the ballroom, a silence like the one that precedes a seismic rupture. Drawing out the letter was not merely a physical act. It was the moment William formally opened the door his mother had entrusted to him decades earlier. I am not standing here to read a prepared speech. I am standing here to restore a voice to a truth that has been sealed away for far too long. This is the message every gaze fixed upon him is waiting to hear. As the first lines are spoken in the eldest son's deep, resolute voice, the world will never look at the British monarchy the same way again. This is not an overthrow by force, but a reconstruction grounded in moral values. The truth about the woman who carries the shadows and the warnings about power will now be exposed under sunlight, the very light Diana always believed would find its way in. Together we have traveled a journey from secrets hidden in diaries to the glare of the present-day spotlight. The world may not thank William immediately, just as his mother once wrote, but one thing is certain: from this night on, the stone walls of the palace will no longer carry the same weight as before. At the heart of the gala, when the envelope bearing the faded royal seal appeared, everyone understood that a historical line was about to be drawn. William's voice was no longer that of an heir delivering a formal address. It was the voice of a son honoring a promise to memory itself. I want to share something that belongs to many, not just to one individual. With that sentence, the opulent hall was transformed into a true sanctuary of truth. Every movement, from the clink of cutlery to the softest breaths, dissolved, giving way to a silence so complete it felt as though one could hear time itself shifting. Through the delicate lines of handwriting, a royal world not carpeted in roses came into view, a stage where its actors must rehearse every smile. The hypothesis of foresight emerges. Diana left behind a map to identify the hidden whirlpools beneath the surface. The warnings about the one whose smile conceals intent were not merely a personal judgment, but a lesson about the nature of power and deception. The emotional climax arrives when the line "sunlight will always find a way in" is spoken aloud, no longer just the hope of a woman long gone, but an affirmation of the enduring existence of justice. From a tribute to a verdict on the kingdom, media headlines reflected a shock that reached down to the very foundations. For the public, this was not merely a letter, it was the return of an icon. Younger generations are beginning to understand why a single name can carry such weight, while those who remained feel old wounds soothed by the courage of the present. William chose to face the storm rather than flee from it. The public response has proven one thing: when a leader dares to speak the truth, they do not weaken an institution, they rebuild trust on a stronger foundation. The curtain of secrecy has been lifted. No matter how frightening the silence behind the palace's closed doors may be, sunlight has truly found its way in. This story does not end with a single gala. It opens a new chapter for integrity and compassion in the flow of royal history. In the centuries-long history of monarchic institutions, discretion has been more than a habit, it has been a suit of armor. But when William chose to break that code of silence, he carried out a revolution of consciousness. Analysts argue that this act was not merely the reading of a letter. It was a redefinition of the covenant between the monarchy and the public. Truth was placed above conservatism. Within just hours, calls for transparency surged into a digital storm where every hashtag became a ballot cast for integrity. The image of the gates of Kensington Palace once again flooded with flowers is not simply nostalgia, it is proof that Diana's spiritual legacy has been reawakened. The message from the public flowers and notes reading, "We hear you." William serves as confirmation that the people's hearts have found a connection with the truth. The power of empathy. Once again, the strength of the English rose proves that human values will always endure longer than any title or hierarchical system. While outside there are cheers of support, inside the palace, a battle of strategies is unfolding. Oh, standing before a media paradox, remain silent and be seen as complicit, speak out, and risk fueling an even greater fire. From an analytical perspective, the shock and sense of being drawn across a line experienced by this figure signal a collapse of standing. When an individual realizes they now stand on the other side of public truth, it is a humiliation that cannot be erased by press releases. For the first time in decades, even the most carefully engineered image-building campaigns have faced an unbeatable opponent, truth from the past carried forward by the courage of the future. The king stands on a historical seesaw. On one side lies personal loyalty and the effort to protect a companion. On the other rests the survival of the institution and the relationship with the heir, the one who now holds the key to public trust. This is no longer a family dispute. It is a confrontation between preserving tradition and adapting to truth. Remain silent or speak out in defense. Every choice at this moment carries the weight of a historic decision, one that could permanently alter the image of the monarchy in the eyes of the world. Under pressure from attempts to soothe public opinion through joint statements, William chose an unshakable stance. When he said, "The letter speaks for itself," he was not merely defending a document. He was defending the authenticity of a legacy. From the perspective of historians within this hypothetical narrative, this marks the monarchy's true flashpoint. The question is no longer about one individual, but about an entire ancient institution's capacity for self-examination. Can a monarchy endure if it does not dare to confront its own scars? The absence of the woman currently in position from public events inadvertently created a vacuum through which truth could spread. Banners bearing images of the past appearing within the present were not acts of hatred, but demands for justice. And when opinion polls pointed to an unprecedented shift, one in which more than half the nation voiced the necessity of a retreat, it ceased to be a debate and became a verdict of conscience. In the heavy atmosphere of a gloomy Tuesday, the palace walls bore witness to a scenario few had anticipated. It was not an explosion, but a quiet, yet decisive shift of power. The meeting between the king, the heir, and the woman standing at the center of the storm was described like a classical tragedy, the King Charles facing a painful choice between personal affection and the survival of the institution. The heir William representing the voice of a new era, one in which truth is placed above concealment. The final position when the phrase, "do what is best for the institution," is spoken, it marks the end of a long and deeply contested journey. Her words, "You are asking me to step aside," are not an act of weak surrender, but an acknowledgement of the formidable power of the institution itself. There is no uproar, no public outrage, only the silence of someone who realizes she has become the sacrifice required to preserve the unity of the monarchy. D. This departure is not merely a personal event. It is proof that sunlight has truly found its way in, even if the price is the irreversible transformation of a dynasty. The departure does not begin with loud declarations. It begins with the fading sound of heels on the palace's thick carpet, a small sound, yet one that marks the end of an order that had endured for decades. When the door closes, it becomes clear that one of the most controversial chapters of the British monarchy has truly receded into the shadows of history. The official statement released shortly afterward was a masterpiece of diplomatic implication. It made no mention of the letter, no reference to fractures or the suffocating pressure of public opinion. Yet in a world governed by symbols, what is left unwritten often carries more weight than 1,000 words. A temporary step back, a safe phrase masking an irreversible shift of power. Outside the cold stone walls, a familiar yet deeply moving scene reappeared. Flowers and portraits of Diana once again covered the palace gates. But this time it was not only grief, there was recognition as well. The public reaction amounted to a collective sigh of relief. People were not merely mourning someone long gone. They were welcoming the return of values they believed had been buried for far too long. The power of the digital sphere was unmistakable. A wave of support for William spread as proof that the courage of one son accomplished what no public relations campaign ever could, healing the wounds of the past with truth. S. In the darkness of his private study, William held the letter one last time. This was not the moment of a victor. It was a moment of quiet reflection. He did not hide the letter away as a dark secret. He preserved it as a spiritual testament. The protective box held more than an old sheet of cream-colored paper. It contained the moral compass of a future king. Honoring his mother's voice above all titles, that was the choice that defined who he is. In the surging current of history, people often believe that empires are turned by grand decrees or shrewd political strategies. Yet perhaps the greatest aftershock this monarchy has ever experienced did not come from an opulent conference table. It came from faded lines of ink from the heartbeat of a mother's love for her son. Those words were not merely memories. They became a form of renewable energy reshaping the crown in ways no royal advisor could ever have foreseen. William did not stand on a podium of glory in search of applause or a personal victory. In the moment he drew the letter from his breast pocket, he chose courage over caution, integrity over the comfort of a protective facade. At the crossroads of duty and love, the heir proved one thing: only by remaining faithful to the truth can one truly lead a nation. He refused to let truth be buried beneath layers of ritual, and it was this very resolve that compelled an entire country to pause, listen, and move forward with him. As the headlines slowly fade and the noise of public debate settles, one eternal truth remains. True legacy is not measured in marble gold or the glittering jewels of the Tower of London. Legacy is the promise that love will always be the shield protecting the most fragile values. Diana's voice carried forward through William is no longer an echo from the past. It has become a beacon guiding the future monarch. In the light of truth, the shadows of suspicion dissolve, giving way to a family and a nation beginning to learn how to breathe again honestly and openly. J. This is for reference only based on hypotheses, rumors, and unverified public opinions. Let us approach this discussion from an objective, analytical perspective. History only truly speaks when we dare to question. Leave your mark in this dialogue. Press 1 if you believe in the power of truth and the desire to seek hidden light. Press 0 if you believe that eternal secrets will continue to sleep behind stone walls. If the aftershocks of this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe to become part of a community dedicated to decoding the secrets of power. See you on the next journey where truth will always find a way to speak.